Hi, Rise Up Summit. I'm Kian.
And I'm Heather. We're the co-hosts of a podcast from Teach Beyond called Transformed and Transformational. Each week on the podcast, we explore what it means to be transformed in our own lives and how that overflows to living lives of transformational impact in our communities.
Heather and I both serve as an organization called Teach Beyond, which is a mission organization focused on education all around the world.
We're here to share an episode of Transformed and Transformational with you, Rise Up Summit. We hope you'll find this information helpful, and we'll also get a little taste of what serving with Teach Beyond is like.
Our guest for this episode is Rosemary Apenda. Rosemary was born and raised in Nairobi, Kenya. She has a background in accounting as well as a degree in Bible and theology and a diploma in computers. She then taught for 7 years in Kenya before her family moved to Romania.
This episode is based on an article that Rosemary wrote about fostering integrity and responsibility in the classroom. This is a big topic, but Rosemary gives us some practical examples and some stories from her own experience. So we're excited to share this with you.
Let's go over to that conversation now.
Welcome to the podcast, Rosemary.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hi, Rosemary. We are so excited to have you here and have this conversation.
Thank you.
We're going to get into all the classroom advice and wisdom that you have for us. Before we get into that, you moved from Kenya to Romania in 2013. And I'm just curious, what were some of the biggest cultural differences that you noticed in your classroom when you first relocated? Because those two places feel very different to me as an outsider.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed the very first time that I stepped in my classroom was power distance. In Kenya, where I come from, teachers are seen as role model and leaders, and they are very respected. And the distance between the teacher and the student is very wide. Whereas here in Romania, the gap was very small. We interacted very closely, and it was for me, that was a culture shock, and I had to adjust to that, to my students.
What did you notice integrating into life in Bucharest? What was different in that way?
Well, life in Bucharest in itself was so different in many ways. I came during winter. It was very cold. We don't have cold winters in Romania. The language, the food, and all that it was a different setup, and it was difficult and pleasant at the same time because I had friends who oriented me into the life of Bucharest, culture, friends, church. Yeah, and it became easier for us to settle down in Bucharest. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to focus in specifically on talking about integrity and responsibility in the classroom. And I'm thinking about how both of these words are words that we've heard before. They're not even specific educational terms, but it's kind of, it takes some intentionality to think about what does it look like to bring these into the classroom and to foster them and to help develop them. So why would you say this is an important topic for teachers to be intentional about? And maybe even why is this important to you?
Well, one thing I believe that integrity is very important, first as a Christian and as an adult, because we are role models. We are modeling students in classroom. It's not just giving them knowledge. Our very own lives should reflect Christ, and it should be a model that a student can emulate. And so this is very important because we are not just giving them knowledge, but we are building tomorrow's citizen or future leaders in society. So integrity is very important, and it should start right from the classroom so that we can have leaders in the future or the society in the future that is well molded in integrity. And another thing, if we do not have integrity in classrooms, we are robbing the students the opportunity to gain knowledge.
Could you give us an idea, like maybe paint a picture specifically of what a classroom with integrity and responsibility looks like versus one that is not? And maybe you don't have to use like a specific bad example, but giving us an idea of what does a classroom with these characteristics that's developing these things in their students look like versus not?
A class that has integrity, it should be seen when the teacher is teaching the students and maybe give an assignment. And if a student does not understand, is able to approach the teacher and say, I do not understand this,
Mm,
please explain further. Or if they fail a test, they should not feel uh, they should not feel ashamed. They should not feel that they are an outcast or they are judged. But the student and I should sit down and discuss, why did you fail, without
mhm,
the student feeling devalued, you know. Whereas a class where there is no integrity, the student will cheat probably in a test so that because they know if they fail the test, there'll be no grace,
mm,
and maybe they'll be ashamed. And so they'll do everything that it takes to not to have the integrity.
mhm,
And so these two, when you cultivate integrity in your class as a teacher, you give the student room to learn, room to be themselves and to value them, and also to understand that sometimes if failing is not the end of it, you can do something else to gain, right? You can
mhm,
you can work hard, or you can ask questions
mhm.
to be able to fill the gap, because the main idea of a student to be in class is to gain that knowledge and in the right way.
It sounds like some of the keywords there are openness and ownership, and like alongside integrity, there's learning and opportunity, and it's not just a static environment or one that's actually pushing them down.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and a relationship between
Yeah.
the student and the teacher is very important. When you approach them like somebody who want to help them,
Mhm.
not to dictate or to be a boss, and you show them that you value them and you understand them and you want to help them, that helps the student to come out of the fear and the shame, and they are able to approach a teacher.
Mhm. Mhm.
And therefore, if you do so, you help the student not to be tempted to cheat, and has the confidence that I can go to my teacher and it will be well.
Mhm.
I love how this has a focus on both the very present, the current classroom that you're in, the kids that you're in, but then long term, how you're developing
Mm.
them as a person and the
Yeah.
characteristics that you're teaching them and instilling in them. Could you walk us through some of these practical ways to instill the values of integrity and responsibility in the classroom? In the article you wrote, I think the first one was teachers' language and mannerisms. Can you talk about what that means? How you show that?
Uh, Language or communication is both verbal and nonverbal. How you communicate to your student matters a lot. With are you coming to stand before them, and what you're saying does not depict what you are not communicating verbally,
Mhm.
or what you're saying, does it really reflect who you are and your
Mhm.
values as a
Mm.
person, as a teacher? Because I believe as a teacher, a teacher is a role model in class and outside class. And so when I'm speaking to my student, they are able to see the authenticity in me,
Mhm.
and I should transfer that to them, and they should model that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
It seems that, what we do as teachers matters, and that we talk about the idea of authenticity in how we bring in, if we're in a Christian school environment and able to openly talk about our faith, that we're not just adding a Bible verse to a lesson but also living that out, right? So that authenticity, it plays out when we're talking about spiritual things overtly, but it's also just our character. Are we saying things and acting, and overall how we are in the classroom, is that all in alignment? And that's a really good reminder.
And one thing I've realized as a teacher, you cannot fake.
Hmm.
It's a heart issue. And so
Hmm.
if your heart is not right, even if you're trying to communicate positive and deep within you is not right, the student will pick that
Mm.
out. Yeah. And so before, as a teacher, before I handle a situation, I look within my heart and how is it, so that I be able to respond to a situation with the love and kindness that is from within outside to the student. And therefore, even when I correct a child, they'll see I'm doing it out of love because they can already feel my heart.
I'm curious if you can give an example, maybe like a real example of how you'd respond not out of integrity and responsibility versus how you would respond in the moment with it. So maybe a time when you've looked inside and your first reaction was the wrong reaction or something, you had to change direction. Can you share one of those experiences with us?
Real practical example, sometimes I teach middle school and they are boys. Sometimes they can do something and the raw you want to come out. And then I realize, and boys can stretch your limit sometimes, or teenagers can stretch your limit as a teacher. And so one thing I've learned is to first to keep quiet before I say something, so that I evaluate my heart before it comes out in a wrong way. And also to, when there's a situation that I need to deal with and I need to show Christ and integrity, I would pull out the student and we have a chat, a talk with this student and get to know why have you behaved this way. And I'll walk with the student through to discover his heart. And so, if when I'm giving the consequences, he will know I am not dealing with him out of anger, but the consequences are good because now he understands right from his heart.
That's great. It sounds like the listening and what you were saying at the beginning about communication and openness, the two-way street, you're not jumping to a conclusion, right? That is so important, that it's not just, "This is what I'm seeing, and I'm gonna act out of my perspective." Yeah.
Sure.
So, okay,
Yeah.
teachers' language and mannerisms is one practical way that we can help to foster integrity and responsibility in the classroom. What's another way?
Honesty. And that comes by some teachers, sometimes us as a teachers, we can put more pressure on students, and maybe they're having pressure from home that you must perform. When they come to class, you must perform, and so we put lots of pressure. And when we do that, the student, because he want to prove that he's good, or he passed the test, that's a one way that we can push a student to cheating.
Mm,
Contrary, in classroom, the main objective is for the student to understand the concept. And so, even though I am giving you a test, what I want to know, have you understood the concept? Did you do your best?
mhm,
Because even if you got a C plus and you did your best, I commend you for that. You did your best. Yeah. And I compliment the student for that. Rather than you must have A. That's not it. I'm not looking for an A student. I am looking for a student who is working hard, understanding the concept, and understanding why he needs to study. And if a student has worked hard, he deserves a compliment. And so they come to my class knowing Mrs. Openda want us to work hard. And so they come with an open heart, not pressure, not feeling like, oh, if you don't, I have to cheat, I have to do some weird things so that I may pass. No, my goal and objective is for you to understand and do your best. I'm good with that.
mhm. And that can help to foster that honest behavior then, right? Because they know
Yes,
they have that safety of what you're expecting. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think you've talked to Rosemary about having class conversations about honesty. And that seems to
Yes.
be really important when there's different cultural understandings of cheating and honesty. Can you tell us more about that?
Honesty is not just a matter of in classroom.
Mhm.
It's a matter of the heart. And of course, in some cultures, maybe an exam cheating is helping one another. Maybe the students are doing group
Yeah.
and I'm just helping,
Yeah.
you're just helping, right? But I want them to know helping when the teacher does not require another student to help you, that's cheating.
Mhm.
And what does the Bible says about cheating?
Mhm.
Because I'm teaching in a Christian school, and beyond you, if you get your answer right, you have not gotten it right because you have taken an opportunity for yourself to learn and to learn something new. So yes, we have to come to bring down the culture of cheating is
Mhm.
to let the student understand, you know
Mhm.
what, you're doing it for yourself. If you cheat, you're taking yourself down
Mhm. Mhm.
because you deny or you rob yourself an opportunity to learn.
Mhm.
And for this we read I we speak very practical and I ask them, for example, you are a doctor, you take a career as a doctor, and in your class you are cheating. Tell me, how will you handle that patient? Will you be up to the task, or what will you do? And so I just don't look at now, I want them to see if they progress cheating, what that looks like in the future.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like that you're taking the time to focus on what they think of culturally, what cheating, how that's understood, or what their actions are, if they see it as cheating or not.
Yeah.
I feel like that leads really well into the next one, which is
Mhm.
appreciation, and how maybe they're cheating in order to get an A or to pass a test or to help a friend. And how can we work with that with appreciation in the classroom?
Well, I've noted that over the years, the moment you appreciate to begin with, I, my setting is a shaming culture. And a shaming culture ashames you. Oh, you did not get good grades. But I have realized over the years, when I appreciate a child, one, they realize their worth and they realize who they are. They are not uh, their worth is not pegged on their grades. So first, that personal realization that I am more of I'm value. I have value in me as a student, as a person, and that changes the way they look at things. That changes and it promotes a positive attitude with that child. And the child may not be a student, but the moment you appreciate them, you see the change, you see the
Yeah.
positive attitude, you see them working hard and putting more effort,
Mhm.
you see them open and blossoming, coming to you to ask you for
Mhm.
help, right? And maybe he was on C and they moves to B or to B plus, and you see that appreciation. And I think it's human nature, we all have to be appreciated.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so appreciation is so key. As a teacher, to appreciate a
Mhm.
student is very key.
So many people comment on how that one thing that that teacher in grade 3 said to me, still I remember those words, or, just how pivotal those conversations are. And that
Yeah,
can really help to, if we're thinking about integrity and responsibility, that can help to build that sense of ownership, that responsibility to now, oh, I can step into what this teacher is seeing in me. And wow,
exactly.
that is a lot of responsibility as a teacher then, right? To
Right,
use those
right.
conversations well.
And because our words are very powerful, as teachers, our words are powerful.
Mhm.
It can be appreciation, can be a turning point
Mhm.
to the life of a child, and
Mhm.
I've seen it.
Mhm.
I've seen a child turn around just because of the appreciation. Is very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Let's take a short break for a story from the field.
Hi, my name is Christine Musa. I'm a middle school English teacher at the Santa Cruz Christian Learning Center in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. The thing that we have gotten to implement is something called Eagle Hour that the homeroom teachers will do with their students. So every other week, our school has chapel with all of secondary, and then every other week, we do something called Eagle Hour. And so that's an opportunity for us as teachers to check in on our students one-on-one during some weeks of Eagle Hour, and other weeks we do whole class bonding activities, and that's been really cool to see the students get to connect more with each other and just be social with each other. And so definitely through that, we've seen relationships start to form more, students having really deep and open discussions with each other about the need for relationships and the need for reconciliation among one another. So that has been really cool to see.
For our weekly spotlight, we are focusing on Bucharest Christian Academy in Romania, where Rosemary serves. If you'd like to learn more about joining the team at BCA, visit teachbeyond.org/go.
And now back to our conversation with Rosemary. Let's keep going through. I love practical, so I love how you're giving us examples of things that we can try and we can integrate, and we can think about how does this fit into our lessons, into our units, into our classroom management. So take us on to the next one.
I believe it's important in fostering integrity and responsibility of a child is that a family unit, because a child comes from a family and the school is another family. So the connection between family at home and family at school is very important, because there need to be that open communication between I as a teacher and the students' parents, so that there'll be consistency of a kind, so that not what I build in classroom is demolished at home. Maybe, for example, I teach study skills for the middle schoolers, and we talk about time management and how to manage their time at home. And so that consistency between what I'm teaching and practicing it at school and at home is very important. Is very important. And so in all these things, family also is very, very important.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and it's fostered by I, as the teacher, having an open door policy. The parent we can have that communication between home and school.
I love how holistic that
Yeah.
advice is about their whole life and surrounding them with these same values. That's great. Can you help us with what is the next piece of advice you have to encourage this?
As a teacher, one of my advice I would say is with grace and consistency and being firm. You need to be firm as you're showing love, you're showing grace, but also need to be firm. The student need to see you as a firm person, giving what you say. Your yes is a yes, and your no is a no, and you have that consistency, so that they know, with this teacher I cannot cross these boundaries. So there should be boundaries, and so a teacher, we need to be very firm in Christ-like. We should show the grace, and we should also know that we are modeling a generation, and God has entrusted us with these children for such a time as this. What will they become after they come out of my classroom? And so I don't just see them as students sitting in front of me. I see them as I see them that God has given me, entrusted me with this student for such a time as this, and I must be a good steward.
Oh, what a great perspective. And that consistency in your firm responses, being let your yes be yes, like that creates safety in the classroom, that then students can feel empowered
Yeah.
to not only have that as a model of how to live, but also feel safe in the classroom to um,
Yeah, right.
be, yeah, to step into who they are and how God's created them. And I think you have one other particular way that we can foster integrity and responsibility, which is around competition. And I think this is a
Oh,
big
yeah.
one in classroom where some teachers might
Yes.
totally avoid this because they're like, oh, I don't want
Uh-huh.
to make, pit students against each other. And some, this is like the essence of their classroom management or, kind of how they build all of their lessons. So walk us through, how can we approach this in a way that intentionally focuses on fostering integrity and responsibility?
Yeah, yeah. Competition in itself is tricky. I would say that,
Yeah.
and but I would want to be more on the healthy
Yeah.
competition. What does that look
Yeah.
like? A healthy competition is where, as a student, you look at the student who is performing well in class, and you want to ask the student, what do you do? What are the strategies do you use
Mhm.
to learn to be the best
Mhm.
student, right? And that open communication and healthy discussion between students,
Mhm.
and I encourage them and I put them in groups sometimes. And healthy competition allows a student to learn something from the other
Mm.
student that is positive. And the difference between a unhealthy competition is where one is jealous and
Yeah.
they break that
Yeah.
communication, and now you're cheating so that you
Right.
can beat this other beat the student or be good.
Yeah.
But that is not it.
Yeah.
Competition is, yes, this guy is performing well in physics. What are the
Yeah.
strategies? And you learn the strategy from one another. And I tell them, nobody knows everything, including I, the teacher.
Yeah.
I learn, and I learn from my
Mhm.
teachers, my fellow teachers. And so when I encourage them to learn from each other, I am not demeaning them.
Yeah.
I'm starting from myself, that I learn from other
Uh-huh.
teachers, I learn from other people, and that is life
Mhm. Mhm.
as a
Yeah.
student. And when you grow up, you keep on
Yeah.
learning, and it's an important thing. So, and I build that
Yeah.
courage and that positive attitude that I can go to my fellow student and I will not feel demeaned or ashamed
Mhm.
or I don't know.
Mhm.
And the other student also who is a bright student or A material on that subject, I tell them, you know what? When God has given you something, a gift, it's not for you only.
Mhm. Mhm.
You share.
Mhm.
So they are able also to share with these other
Yeah.
students and hold their hands. And I give them practical example. When I was a student, this is what my teacher did, and we formed a group. And I was among five students, and there were those who were good in math, good in history in this group, and we helped each other.
Yeah.
And I learned a
Yeah.
lot. We all learned from each other.
Right.
And so I encourage them you can learn from
Yeah.
anybody. You can learn.
Mhm.
And that is very important.
Mhm.
And that is a kind of health competition I'm talking
Yeah.
about. It is not everybody getting A and the others getting D and there's a line. No,
Mhm.
we share.
Yeah. That collaboration within the midst of the competition is so key. And as you said, you're helping your students become global citizens, become, contributing parts of the workforce in the future to, learn important character traits now. And that is, this is part of that competition is part of their life experience. And so knowing how to approach that, use the word courage,
Yeah.
and also, thinking of other people, looking out for those around them. That's great.
And one thing, sorry, maybe I can add, one thing I've realized, when you cultivate that healthy competition, the students also spark some interest and passion,
Mm.
and you inspire something in them, and they want to learn. Now they're so interested, they spend the extra more time at
Yeah.
home instead of watching video games and everything. And you see them also going to study, and the following day they come, oh, yesterday I did my studies and I discovered this, because they also want to
Yes,
contribute.
right.
Yeah, so it becomes something
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's Wow, Rosemary, I can tell that the Lord has given you great wisdom in how you're approaching teaching, and your students are blessed to have you approaching the classroom with all these things in mind, and the humility to say there's always more that you're learning and want to grow in. So I'm curious, over the course of time that you've been a teacher, how have you experienced personal transformation as an educator?
The day I realized that it's not just giving knowledge, it's more of my life,
Mm,
sharing my life with the students. That was my turning point to the teaching career.
mm,
And I searched my heart. And before I stand in my classroom, one question I ask myself, will the student look at me and say they would take me as their role model?
mm,
And what are the things do this generation need from us as foreigners? And so this has given me an opportunity, let me say,
mm,
to always search my heart, walk right
mm.
with the Lord. I'm human.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I feel that in my preparation, in my inner work, I feel I am so much transformed in a way that I want what is inside me come out and come out as sweet waters to my students. And and so I walk every morning and ask the Holy Spirit, let me uh, be an example to my student this day. Yeah, and also it has changed my perspective on how I see the students. I don't just see them as children sitting in front of me and like a work I go from 8 to 3. No, I have a responsibility to model tomorrow's generation, and it is in my hands, and I have the opportunity to make it good or to make it bad.
Mm, mm,
I love the huge shift that is of just you're not just one teacher for a class period for a day for a year, but this is you're developing the characteristics and the who that person's going to be as an adult
Yeah,
for the whole for that classroom, for each kid, for that society. That's really
mm.
powerful.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much for talking with us today. Before we let you go, we have one important question we ask all of our guests, and that is what's one thing that's changing your life this week? So it can be big or small. It doesn't have to be really serious. It can be light also. So I'll go first and then Heather, so you have a little bit of time to think about it. But the thing that's changing my life this week and actually the past number of months is I've been part of a mentoring group.
Mm.
And through that group, we read a book each month. And it's been really fun to just
Wow.
read a new book that I probably want to pick up on my own, but I have been given that book. I have to read that book. So
Mm,
it's been fun to read those different books and kind of engage in those different thoughts from the
yeah.
books that we've been given. So that's been changing my life this past year.
I remember you mentioning when you joined that group, and that is a big commitment to read
Wow.
a book a month that someone else picks for
It
you. It's
is.
one thing to, pick it
Yeah.
yourself and have that motivation of what you want to read. So that's great.
Yeah, we kind of I expected shorter books is what I'll say.
Wow.
And some of the books are like, oh, that's a longer book. I don't know if I can do that in a month.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it's been
that's
good.
Oh, wow.
impressive. That's great. Well, along the lines of books, something that's been changing my life lately is actually listening to an audiobook. I almost always have a paper book in hand. Like I don't read on a e-reader and I rarely listen to an audiobook. I'm just more of a looking at the words person. I listen to a ton of podcasts though. So what was really interesting is realizing that if I'm counting like how many books I read in a year, which I think audiobooks count, even though I'm not a regular audiobook listener, like the number of podcasts that I listen to is actually like a lot of books worth of content.
Sure.
So it was just interesting to realize that like you can, audiobook read, I'm using air quotes here, an audiobook like in not that much time. So I had a long car ride and made it through a whole book. So that was kind of exciting. Rosemary, what has been changing your life lately?
Over the summer, we had a camp, and we had around 170. And what really touched my heart when I come down to their level and we are singing, worshiping the Lord, dancing with them, and of course, I would say I'm the minority coming from Africa. Almost everybody was different from me in a good way, and so as I was dancing with them and worshiping with these kids, and them saying, Rose, you know what, Rosie, we want to be your friend. And I say, oh, yeah. And I say, why do you want to be my friend? We want to dance like you, we want to sing like you. And I said, okay, let's do it every week. And so that has been
amazing.
something that I'm looking for. I look forward with these girls. They're girls, they're from different villages in Romania. And so it's such an awesome thing to see young girls desiring what you have and looking unto you. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yes. That's so humbling to be, again, in that position where a student actually does see you as, okay, I want what you have, your charisma, and as well as the faith that you are exhibiting in that moment.
And dancing is in our blood.
There you go. Who doesn't want that? That's great. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Rosemary, for joining us for this conversation, for just sharing these suggestions for our classrooms, as well as just how we view the students in our care. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks so much for joining us for this conversation with Rosemary. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, check out the Transformed and Transformational podcast on your favorite podcast player.
Each week, we feature episodes with tips and tools for teachers, in-depth discussion with experts in different fields, stories from missionaries serving on the field, and resources for spiritual development. It's all about how we can grow, as well as have a transformational impact in the communities where we live and work.
If hearing Rosemary's story piques your interest in Teach Beyond, we'd love to connect with you to explore opportunities that might be a good fit. We have short-term mission trips. We have ways you can serve remotely from your home administratively or with curriculum or fundraising. Or perhaps you'd like to explore teaching overseas someday. Our team would be glad to share with you about opportunities in dozens of countries all around the world and answer your questions. To get started, visit teachbeyond.org/go.
Heather, Rosemary, and I serve with an organization called Teach Beyond. As you have heard, education plays a big role in missions, and Teach Beyond is a part of that. As followers of Jesus, Teach Beyond is a global community, providing transformational education services as part of God's ongoing mission to transform individuals and communities into all He intends.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us next week on Transformed and Transformational.